What's up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Pete.
And we're coming to you live from a couple of places on the internet. We are live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube, Twitch, X/Twitter, Instagram. Maybe you're listening later wherever you get your podcasts. It's all good. We're very excited to see you tonight for our packed show. We got a ton of awesome interview guests for you tonight. Are you nervous? Are you okay?
No, it's just exciting.
Oh, yeah. No, it is. It's always exciting to talk to people, to reach out. I will tell you right here at the top, I've mentioned this here on the show before, but I semi-regularly host a bunch of comic book clubs, which are different from our comic book club. It's a different one.
Make it more confusing for people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Bryant Park here in New York, in the middle of Manhattan, over the course of the summer. It's a lovely event where people hang out. They can get free books. And earlier today, I did a chat about Batman The Court of Owls by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, which was a little terrifying because usually I have somebody to work off of, like a guest or whatever, but this time they're like, no, it's just you. And then I found out that, have you ever seen that meme where it's like, hey, if you had to do a TED Talk right now, what would it be on? Turns out it's Court of Owls. I was good to go, man.
Nice.
But the reason I wanted to bring this up in terms of seeing people is Kevin, a.k.a. Scheuchler, one of our frequent listeners, came by and checked it out. It was very nice to see him in person versus...
Was it a puppet version of him or was it really him?
It was really him, if you can believe
Wow.
It. It's pretty wild. But I will plug, if it's all right, at the top here, then August 6th, if you are in New York, we're going to be talking about Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong. That's also going to be in Bryant Park. Again, totally free event. There you go. Pete's got the shirt already. Really embarrassing to have the shirt at the concert, but that's all right, Pete.
Not when it's Godzilla, man.
Not when it's Godzilla. His concerts, though, I used to see him at like little underground gigs before his first album came out. That was great. That was a chill time.
Those were the best.
They were the best.
Before he used to sell out and just pack and,
All right, enough of this, though. Why don't we bring in our first guests here? They are two of the creators behind Indie Circus Games, which is on BackerKit until July 18th. Ladies and gentlemen, Spike Trotman and Andrew Baillie. Hello, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having us, but it's Iron Circus Games, really quickly.
Oh, what did I say?
Indie Circus.
Oh my God, I wrote that down wrong. I'm a terrible person. Also, I probably mispronounced Andrew's name.
Yes, it's the double L, but it's two L's.
All right. Well, it's a good thing we're not live. Why don't we take this back? We'll try this again.
Okay.
0 for 2, bro.
0 for 2.
I have never messed up ever.
Well, I'm very excited to talk to both of you about this project. This is such a cool collaboration. So as you mentioned, it's Iron Circus Games. It is a collaboration between Iron Circus Comics and Indie Apocalypse to make a bunch of indie games that are coming out. And they're awesome. I mean, I haven't played them, but I've seen video of them and read about them. They're so wild. They're so much fun. Talk about how this project started, because Iron Circus, maybe Spike, I'll go to you first, has been around for a really long time, obviously. You've done a ludicrous amount of crowdfunders, but this is a very different sort of project for you.
Yeah, this happened kind of by serendipity, which is how a lot of things happen to me. Like, we're working in animations now, and that was serendipitous too. But in the case of Indie Apocalypse, in case of this collaboration, like, games were kind of always this back burner thing where I was always really interested in getting into it, kind of forging a path in there, getting the machete out and cutting a pathway into the unknowable jungle of indie games, because making games has become a lot more accessible, and a lot of really fun, weird, small game projects are out there right now. And I was like, I want to figure out how to be part of that, because a lot of Iron Circus creators are already sort of investigating it by themselves. Abby Howard, for example, is responsible for Slay the Princess. That's kind of been taking the world by storm lately. And nice. Evan Dom, who makes the comics Rice Boy, he got nominated for his webcomic this year, Third Voice. He's Eisner nominated for Third Voice. Nice. He's experimented in games before. And I'm like, I wish there was sort of a more directed funnel, sounds like a weird way to put it, but more directed sort of point of access for people who are active in comics and make really great, interesting comics, so that they can make really great, interesting games. And while there are really accessible platforms out there for making games, I think I know a lot of them had ideas that kind of transcended what those platforms could do with someone with zero programming experience could achieve. And then I got an email from Andrew, just out of nowhere. I got an email, and he was all like, "Hey, so I know what you do, and maybe you know what I do, and wouldn't it be cool if we did that together?" And I was just like, "Oh my God, yes! This is something I've been wondering about and trying to figure out for a while." And here is somebody who knows programmers and knows indie games and knows how to go about that sort of thing all by themselves. And it'd be cool if I could get their expertise.
Well, Andrew, not to interrupt Spike, but Andrew, given that, what made you reach out to Spike about this?
Yeah.
I like just independent art a lot in general, and comics a lot as well.
Nice.
And I'm trying to remember, like 2-3 years back, I had done like a similar collaboration with if you're familiar, Koosh Comics, like an indie publisher out of Latvia, and I was like, oh, this is a very cool experiment. Like they were like, oh, none of these artists really play games. I'm like, that's all the better, because I have a strong focus on kind of extremely sort of independent, left far from the kind of standard what is a video game sort of thing. So, and a lot of times people coming from different mediums have a whole different artistic background, but nothing within like games. So they don't have all that baggage of what is a video game. So I was like, oh, this was working with Kush was a cool project. I was like, what other like cool independent comic publishers do I know who might be up for this? And so like, oh, I have Iron Circus books on my shelf. I like Iron Circus a lot. Let me email Spike and see what happens. And what happened is that we're here now, like, some years later, but the last one, as all of my stuff is usually just fully self-funded, but this is crowdfunded, and those kind of things take a bit more time to get organized.
Well, it did get organized, and I'm just going to bring it up here. You are not to dissuade anybody because there's 9 days left on BackerKit, but you are successfully funded, so that's awesome. Congratulations!
Yeah, no, I'm a serial last 24-hour kind of backer. So,
well, I'm glad other people weren't, because you will get to do this, and you are funded, which is awesome. But these projects, like I mentioned earlier, are so cool and so much fun. I certainly have a favorite of the ones that I was reading about, but it looks like each of them are a collaboration between two people. So is this one person from Iron Circus and one person from Indiepocalypse collaborating, or how does it work?
Sort of.
Generally, yes. The initial version, but sometimes people come in and out. But that's the fundamental idea.
Yeah. We've got some creators who are just sort of peripheral to Iron Circus, and we've got some creators that are longtime collaborators with Iron Circus. I'm talking about on the art angle here. So it's a mix, but we tried to pair it up so it was one Indiepocalypse person to one Iron Circus person, just for balance.
Yeah. And these are not direct adaptations of Iron Circus comics, right? They're original things.
No, we kind of approached it. It wasn't a game jam, I should note that. That's a totally different thing. But I kind of wanted there to be almost game jam sensibilities, where you're bringing maybe an idea you've had to the project, but not something that you've been stewing over for like the past 3 years. Like, oh, I'd really like to do this, would really like to do that. And make it a collaborative thing. So, I don't want the programmer involved treated just like, a robot going, okay, now do this, now do that, now do this. I want them to be part of the creative process too. So while, as people came to it, they couldn't just come to it with a fully formed idea. They had to be ready to work with somebody.
That's so interesting because, and I like this approach, it's way more creative and challenging, but it seems like it would be relatively easy to say, make a Lackadaisy game or something like that. You already have that built-in audience. So was that any part of the discussion at any point?
No, we didn't. I mean, we are open to the idea of a Lackadaisy game. I should mention that. That's definitely on the table. But this was something that was very separate from that. It wasn't like, what's the word I'm looking for that's going to sound the most diplomatic? Like Lackadaisy is already wildly popular, and it kind of doesn't need help with finding audiences in whatever path it chooses to pursue, I guess is the best way to put it. And I'm kind of, the ethos of the indie game isn't take the most popular thing you have and merchandise it. The ethos of the indie game is, you know what would be weird? And then making that into a game. And I wanted to kind of cleave closer to that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Can I ask you, I teased before my favorite one. This was the concept that really got me, was teething. And I'll read it for anybody who's listening to the audio podcast. You're the parent of a young werewolf. Puppy-proof your home before the next full moon or face the consequences.
Yeah.
That's great. I can't wait to play that. Where did that come from, or what was your reaction when that was pitched to you?
Honestly, that one conceptually came from one of my, I have been friends with this person so long, Kel McDonald. They are an Iron Circus editor. They've been published by Iron Circus numerous times. They're the one, I should say, of the chief editors of one of our more popular lines of kids books, which is the Cautionary Fables and Fairy Tales line, which is,
Nice.
Various fables and stories divided up by the continent that they originate on. Kel loves werewolves. Kel has always loved werewolves. Kel is all about werewolves. Kel's comics are about werewolves. If there's a way to be a werewolf in a game, Kel will figure out how to be a werewolf in that game, whether it requires mods or not. So when the time to make games came around and Kel was like, I have an idea for a werewolf game, it was one of those things like, wow, imagine that.
Love his dedication.
Andrew, on your end, when you're working with people who I assume are relative neophytes, like we're talking about with game design, what's the process like in terms of getting them up to speed? Or is it more about using them as the story engine and then you providing more of the game engine? Again, I don't know what I'm talking about.
I imagine every person has like a different like approach to it, and a lot like Spec mentioned, a lot of these tools are like fairly easy to pick up and to understand. And my approach when I think of it like this is kind of like each person's going to have ideas and know their own expertise, but it's kind of like working within like, oh, I have an idea for this game mechanic, and it's like, well, this is a ultra complex thing to do, in the same way as like I have a cool art idea and that would require like 80 sprites, and it's like working within each other's limitations, and sort of like I prefer, like I really like to emphasize these things are meant to be collaborative, not meant to be in the same way that like a programmer is not meant to be just a pile of code for an artist's ideas, nor is an artist meant to just provide art for a game programmer's dream game.
Exactly.
Not to keep going in this direction, but Spike, I'm curious, is there any thought now that they are games of taking them back to comics or extending them that way? Or again, is it just kind of leaving the project as is and letting it be its own thing?
To be honest, I'm open to pretty much anything. If there is a game that a creator makes, the way I'm thinking of it is sort of in terms of game jams again. I reemphasize this: it's not a game jam. That's a whole different thing. But
right,
the thing that often happens in game jams is someone makes a game and then they're all like, you know what? I think I can do more with this, and they take it on to something more complex and something they build out beyond sort of a little 15-minute game. And that's where we get stuff like Super Hot, and we can get all kinds of cool stuff out of game jams. And if someone makes an Iron Circus game and they go, I'd like to keep walking down this road and see what happens, do you think I could get a graphic novel out of this? My answer would just be, well, that's a you question. Like, do you you could get a graphic novel out of this? I'd be more than willing to hear you out if you want to submit a proposal and you think it's got legs and you can take it somewhere.
Not to stick with you, Spike, but I will anyway. So at this point, you guys have done, I think, 40 plus crowdfunding campaigns on various platforms.
Yep.
Were there any additional challenges doing this one, given that it was a new format, or was the fact that you already had this built-in audience a nice perk to get it going?
Oh, I love my audience, but they honestly didn't know what to think of what I was doing here. I don't think. I appreciate them willing to walk down this weird path with me, but the Iron Circus audience these days is primarily comics and also occasionally animation. That's what they expect from us. So when we start making weird indie games, I think they get the vibe, and they're willing to like sort of follow us down this road, which I appreciate. But my big challenge was kind of finding the indie game audience and being all like, hey, look, we made some games, you want to check them out? And they're like, I'm sorry, who are you? Which is where it really came in handy, because, you know, Andrew is respectable and respected, and everybody knows what Apocalypse is. So it's not just, oh, Iron Circus has no clue what it's doing. What are they doing? It's like, oh, they're partnering with Indiepocalypse. If I give a crap about indie games, I've heard of that. I know what that is.
And just to bring it back to comics again, but on the backer kit, you have a bunch of different bundles where people can get Iron Circus comics and ebooks and other things. So there's a lot of different variations on what people can get there, right?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah. As you enter these final days, what is the push going to be like now that you've fully funded it? Are you potentially opening up more rewards? Is there anything you can tease about that?
We would like very much to keep it before, like there is a thing there. Feature creep isn't just a thing in games; it can be a thing in crowd funds too, where you know it wouldn't be difficult to add this, it wouldn't be difficult to add that, and the next thing you know, you've initiated like 15 new production cycles that you never planned for on the first day. So we like to avoid that. Our big push now is just, you know, indie games. They're a hobby for most people who are involved or self-funded, and it can be a black hole. And one of the things that's roughest to deal with, and not just, you know, nowadays, but kind of in perpetuity, it's kind of always been this way, is getting artists kind of like a fair shake for their labor. We enjoy so much that artists make, and they have such a hard time seeing any kind of compensation for it. So we are kind of emphasizing right now, it's like, if you are willing to play some very weird games by some very weird people and, you know, throw $1 into the hat over it, that is going to the creators. That's going to the people who are making the games that you're enjoying. And if you want to see them rewarded, now is a good way to do it. Now is a good way to sort of show your appreciation over time.
Well, shouts out to that. I mean, it goes without saying, but it's always good that you're putting the artists first in terms of getting them paid. So that is awesome to hear. For both of you, before I let you go, again, people should pledge this 100%. The games look awesome.
Yeah.
But what else do you want to plug? Andrew, to you, is there anything else folks should be checking out from Indiepocalypse?
Yeah, I guess if you are unfamiliar, if you're coming from, I don't know, I guess a primarily comics background, you're like, what is indie games? Or especially like, what is like indie independent? This is like, think of the video game equivalent of something you would see at like a local indie comic show, like an SPX or something. These are, you know, self-funded, self-made, smaller scale games, and Indiepocalypse collects them all and like does a lot of that curatorial work, anthology style for you. And that's indiepocalypse.com. And, you know, one comes out the first Friday of every month. So one came out like, what was that, like 3 days ago? 4 days ago, a new one just came out. And that is similar. And similar, like I commission new games every month for that. I curate the ones that exist already. That's it. It's been so long since I pitched. I was like, what? I don't have my pitch lined up.
No, that's fine. Just imagine we're in an elevator and we can kind
yes. Yeah, indie games. If you like them, go to indiepocalypse.com.
Yeah,
there we go.
Explore the world of weird games.
Yes. Oh, you know what? If you like physical indie games, I also publish those.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it just pizzaprigs.com/tape club is a monthly club of cool games you might have heard of in some cases.
Oh.
If you're familiar with games like Shotgun King and Who's Lila.
And do you, just per the name, do you put them on tape, or how are they physical games?
I put them in like little cassette. You know, I can turn on my virtual camera right now. I don't have one within reach, but I bet I could fire up OBS and put in a virtual camera real quick. I put them inside. I put them inside I put USB sticks inside of little cassette cases.
Oh wow,
and
give them like custom cover art and that sort of thing as a way to.
That is cool.
Yeah, that is very, very cool. Spike, what about you? What is coming up other than this from Iron Circus that you want to plug, if anything?
Well, we just recently partnered with Lackadaisy, I should say, specifically the animation branch, Iron Circus Animation, recently partnered with Glitch, which is a animation studio out of Australia responsible for things like Murder Drones and Amazing Digital Circus, we partnered with a new branch of Glitch called Final Project to relaunch the Lackadaisy store at lackadaisyshop.com. And we've got all kinds of fun new merchandise, a whole new collection for folks to check out. We have tater plushies of both Mordecai and Rocky, and tater plushies are like these little flat potato-shaped plushies. They're very cute. We also have standees. We have a new shirt and a hoodie. We have all kinds of cool new things. The bomber jacket I especially like. And every dime you spend at lackadaisyshop.com goes towards guaranteeing we get to make more Lackadaisy. It's important that we are funded by merchandise because this is what stops us from taking funding from third parties, which could do all kinds of horrible things to the show that we're not interested in them doing. So if you enjoy watching Lackadaisy, if you want to see more Lackadaisy in the world, please go to lackadaisyshop.com and load up on cool merchandise and help us keep making more cool cartoons the way we want to make them, as opposed to the way Suits would have us make them.
Excellent.
All right.
Love to hear that, Spike. And I'll just mention Lackadaisy creator Tracy Butler is, I believe, going to be on the show sometime next month. I'm blanking on the exact date. So we're excited to chat with her again. But thank you both. Congratulations on the success. It's so cool. Thanks for coming on and have a lovely night.
You too as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. There we go. That was Andrew and Spike from
Awesome stuff,
Iron
man.
Circus Games.
There you go.
I know.
There you go.
Absolutely. You can check that out on BackerKit until July 18th. Please do. It's so cool. I know I read out
so
one of
creative,
the
so
concepts.
awesome. Worth checking out for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Why don't we bring in our next guest? He is the creator of one of Pete's favorite comics of last year and probably this year too. We just haven't talked about it. I don't know. But Kaya is the name of the book and Wes Craig is the name of the guy. Wes, welcome.
Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Excited to talk about this book. So Kaya is coming out from Image Comics. Book 3 is out today, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think I'm always confused about how that works. I think it came out a week ago in comic shops and then the next week in bookstores. So yeah, it's available everywhere now. Book number 3. It's kind of crazy. I was like, maybe I hope this is successful enough, and not that it's, the craziest success ever, but it's paying the bills and I'm able to do book number 3. Hopefully I'm trying to get to book number 8 to complete the entire series. And yeah, we're on our way. Like I'm starting book number 4 as we speak. So it's kind of cool.
That's exciting. So awesome. So yeah, book 3 collects issues 12 through 17. Issue 18 and 19 are out, and issue 20, I wrote all this down. I don't know this off the top of my head, just being honest with you, Wes, comes out August 7th, 2024. That's this year. I don't know why I said that. From Image Comics. Yeah. It's great to give like the roughest of all possible overviews in terms of where it starts. It's about this girl with a magic arm, if anybody hasn't read it, and her brother. Their village is destroyed, and they go on this big adventure ostensibly to find safe haven and also get on some very dangerous things happen to them as they go. We're in a very different place heading into issue 20, a new part of their adventure they're heading on. But you also took a interesting sidestep in the last issue to show us potentially something in the future, maybe side, we don't know, but Kaya has a different magic arm. She's in a different place. She looks different. So a lot going on there. That's sort of a basis for any of our listeners who haven't read the book before. But let's take it all the way back because it is this really simple concept that you've blown up in a very big way very quickly. What was the groundwork like to get there? Was it starting with the magic arm, then just sort of riffing? Was it planning out the whole world? How did you begin?
It started with a pitch that I gave to Image Comics years and years ago, like before I've been in comics professionally for almost 20 years now. And even before that, there was a pitch that I gave to Image that I had it printed locally. I had it all like penciled ink, colored, the whole deal, paid for the printing of a few different copies, sent it out. But it's like, I've looked at it, I keep it since. It's kind of funny to look at. Like the artwork is okay, but the story wasn't really there, like my story my story chops were not at the same level as the art chops. And but the world was cool. I liked the world a lot, and it was the same thing. It was a fantasy world, and it's basically more or less the version that Kaya and her brother Jin exist in is like a expanded version of that world, but it's basically the same. It's kind of like so far in the future of the Earth that it looks like the past, like the ancient past, you know, ancient Babylon, or more kind of like a Conan type of thing, like the Hyborian age, but it's like so far in the future that it resembles that kind of a world. So I wanted to keep that world, but I didn't have, like, Kaya didn't exist yet. There was no like character in that world that was really that the reader could really root for. So slowly, you know, eventually a few years later, I put that on the shelf, and a few years later, I don't remember exactly how, but Kaya popped in my head, or I think I was just working on just a cool looking character. It might not have been like I might not have known exactly what the idea was, but I think I came up with that idea. She had the metal arm, she had the kind of dreadlocks with like black. It's weird actually, because looking at like Furiosa now, I'm like, it's kind of funny. It's the metal arm, black across the face. It's like, it sounds like BS, but I swear to God, like I came up with that idea like quite a while ago, like a long time before the Fury Road movie. But it's just kind of similar ideas of what would make a really visually stunning character, probably. And yeah, but at the time that I made her, she was an adult. And then from there, I thought, well, what if she was a little girl? Because then she could be kind of a badass. She's raised as a hunter. She's got this powerful metal arm, but she's still just a kid. So that would just be one more obstacle in her way, you know? And then Jin came from the idea of like, okay, well, what's the driver of the story? She's going to be kind of this stoic, tiny, pint-sized Conan type of character in my eyes. But it's like, what drives the story? And then that kind of slowly turned into the character of Jin. And from there, yeah, I just kind of filled out the world. I have a map that I haven't fully shown anybody. It's more for my own little reference, where it's like they're making their way across this map to hopefully to their eventual destination, like you said, to their safe harbor. And it just kind of helps me visualize like, where are they going? And from that, I've kind of, like I said, like the reason I know it's supposed to be 8 books is because it's pretty figured out. Like not every single line of dialogue or anything like that, but book, you know, I'm working on the single issues that will eventually become book number 4. But I mean, book number 5, 6, 7, 8, I do have them in basic beats. I understand what the drama is and what the major points are of each storyline, like up until the end, you know. And that's just part of the reason I do that is because I'm not able to really like fly by the seat of my pants as a writer. I kind of need, and I'm the same way as an artist too. Some people are able to kind of come up with things on the fly. I'm more of a structured person. I need the confidence of knowing where I'm going, kind of, and that helps me create. It's an easier time. I don't get writer's block as much and stuff like that, you know. So anyway, yeah.
Well, one thing I wanted to kind of talk about while we're talking about your process here is, first off, let me back up and just kind of compliment you a little bit. I love the world you create, the characters you create, the tone that you set with your art. It's really unbelievable, and I love diving into these worlds. You do such a great job with them. It's fun to kind of look around and be a part of everything. You know, a lot of writers will have an idea and then spend so much time trying to send them references to artists to be like, see the image in my head. You know, but then they get to kind of walk away from it and then be surprised by what comes back and kind of work with it. Is it more exhausting, kind of like, you know, doing everything? Or is it just make more sense for you to like visualize something and then get to kind of create it?
It's a little bit of both. It's more exhausting doing the writing and drawing of a comic book all by myself. I mean, Tom Napolitano does the lettering, Jason Wordy does the coloring, and Erica Schnatz at Image does the design work. But I mean, yeah, I do the writing and the drawing and the halftone watercolors that get turned, that Jason kind of works his magic on. But at the same time, it's more exhausting, but it's easier too, because it's just like, I don't know, like for me, this is always been the goal. Is I've always written stuff for myself to draw, and the drawing took off as a career earlier, just because I had spent more time on the drawing side of things. But it's like the goal one day. I'm like, I just really just want to just write and draw my own series, and it's easy to stay excited because it's literally drawing everything that you like to draw. You're not going to, I have to draw scenes that will be difficult for me because the story might demand it. But at the same time, it's set in a world, the world, the elements of the world are all the things that I know I'll like. You know what I mean? I like crumbling castles and fantasy elements, these wild kind of fantasy characters and stuff like that. And I spent almost 10 years on Deadly Class doing very grounded real world stuff, which was a ton of fun. And it was great to be able to collaborate with Rick Remender on that. I learned a lot from him.
Yeah, he's a fun, crazy guy.
He is. but I'm definitely, after that, I was like, I do not want to draw another gun or motorcycle or like modern building for like a while, like 9.5, 10 years or so of that is like, I'm good with that for now. And also, it's like a very violent series. So therefore this is a bit of it's like a palate cleanser in a way. You don't want to do exactly the same thing after you've done something for that long. You want to do something different. So this is a bit more of a, not exactly all ages, but you can give it to a kid and it's not going to like, you don't have to give a parental warning if you give it to them, whereas Deadly Class, I've been at many conventions where a kid comes over, they see the picture of Saya, not Kaya, but Saya, for those who know Deadly Class, behind me, and they think it looks cool. And the parent comes up like, can my kid read this? And I'm like, how? And if they say anything below, I don't know, 15, 16, 17, depends on, I'm like, you read it first and then you decide.
Yeah, exactly. That's smart.
And then they just sort of pick it up and blanch, all the color comes out of their face and they just put it down and back away. I wanted to ask you about your panel structure. Maybe I'm misremembering Deadly Class. I think this was present there a little bit, but it seems much more so with Kaya, where you don't have any black borders around the panels. You have, it seems like, much wider margins between the panels than you might expect as well. What led to this look?
Yeah, I think, there was in Deadly Class, there was no borders around the panels. Mm-hmm. It was always like white space. But this one, yeah, for sure. It's more open for sure. Deadly Class, especially with the way that I do it myself, the way that I saw the pages being, and also with Rick he writes relatively dense scripts with like quite a few panels per page. And some of that was just, I want to be able to like, again, doing 10 years of it, it's like, how do I keep myself constantly entertained for this long haul that we're going to be doing? We didn't know it was going to be 10 years or whatever. We weren't sure, but we knew it was going to be like an ongoing series for as long as we could go, as long as the story made sense. And so I would do these little things where I'd experiment with the page layouts, and I do kind of tiny little panels and little crazy things like weird comic book storytelling experiments that I think maybe not every reader would get into, but I think if deep comic fans and other comic creators might get a kick out of, but like Kaya again is more for everybody, I'd like to think that it would be an accessible comic for a first time. If this is your first comic, like I want them to be able to open up and say, oh, okay, like I understand how to read this comic. Whereas Deadly Class is a bit more intricate and a bit maybe harder to get into. So it's like the type is a little bit bigger. It's a bit more airy. There's a bit more room to breathe. When you look at each page, it's not as dense, and so that's kind of on purpose. I want it to be, and also because it's like two kids, I wanted the art style and everything about it to be a bit more rounded. Deadly Class is more punk rock, so it's more jagged and blacks and kind of like energy and stuff like that, So Kaya is a bit more rounded, a bit more open, and all that stuff is kind of hopefully.
I was going to bring up about the rounded because that's definitely present in Kaya's design. She almost, maybe not exactly, but she almost has like a Charlie Brown head in a kind of way.
Sure.
Hey, come on, man, watch yourself.
No, I say that positively. Like, I think it really does lean into making it feel like this, at least initially, this more innocent, inviting world. Mm-hmm. But as we've seen, particularly in this last issue, her face becomes more face-shaped. It becomes a little older. It becomes a little more angular.
Yeah, for sure. There's more of bringing out the cartoony aspect of my drawings. That was like kind of an on-purpose thing. Whereas like Deadly Class was a bit more a bit more realistic, pretty like simple shapes and all that kind of stuff, like pretty minimalist style in a way. But yeah, in this one, I wanted it to be a bit more rounded, and especially with the two main characters, they have the balloon heads and dots for eyes and like Tang Tang or one of those kinds of things, like where it's a bit more on the cartoony side.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's older in that one that you're talking about. It's like a jump forward in time, which again is kind of like a nod of the cap to Conan, where in those old pulp novels, they jump around in time. He'd be Conan the King, and then the next thing he'd be back to being a barbarian, and then he'd be a pirate, and he's kind of all over the place, showing different eras of Conan's life. So this is a bit of that, where it's like I jump forward for a minute, and then we go back to our main story in the next issue that's coming up. It's back to the main story, but the jump forward, there's a reason why I do that, and that'll play itself out in the next few storylines.
If it's okay to talk about the last panel of the last issue, is that all right? It's been out for a little while.
Sure.
So great last panel where they're at a beach side. There's waves crashing on the beach. You have this awesome overhead shot of them, and it teases they're going to be heading on the Dragon Road, but we don't know what that is. We just know that's going to be the next volume. What can you tease about that, if anything?
Yeah, I just it's interesting. I want to keep the story going, but I want to have big enough points where I feel like a new reader can jump on. That's always the problem of like an ongoing comic series, is you're trying to bring in new readers. So the 3 straight paperbacks are there. We're putting out a little chapbook, like a free giveaway in comic shops. It's like an 8-page black and white thing that's kind of a summary of the first 3 books, which hopefully you buy the books anyway, but just for readers that are on the fence thinking about it, it's like you can throw that to them and maybe that'll get them interested, and then they can jump into the next story arc. And yeah, they've kind of failed in the last mission that they had, which I thought that was kind of interesting and exciting in a way, because it's like, the heroes always prevail, and in this one they kind of failed in their mission, and because of that their lives are going to be that much harder. They were trying to get on a pirate ship that was going to get them very close to where they want to be, and that ended up failing, and so therefore now they have no choice but to go on the Dragon Road, which is like this dangerous swath, like this path they have to cut through the rest of the fantasy map I was telling you about, where they go through a lot of dangerous territories. And there's going to be a lot of new characters, a few characters that you've seen before that are coming back. This character called Razel, who, again, in my original pitch to Image back in the day, there were 3 main characters in that story, and they were kind of my take on the 3 like kind of main Norse gods, like Odin and Thor and Loki. And this character Razel was in that original pitch. He's like the only survivor in a way of that original pitch, because I've always just had this trickster type character in my mind. So he's gonna make an appearance. The Black Wizards that I've talked about since the beginning of the thing, they might make a quick appearance, and there's going to be a pretty shocking turn of events with like the Robot Empire. So there's going to be, it's shaking it up a little bit, and seeing like, just getting them on a new and even more dangerous path.
That all sounds very awesome. Now, I want to take a little bit of a side turn. I would be remiss if I didn't ask about this. I understand if you can't really say much. There was a document that ended up online, a ashcan from San Diego Comic-Con for something seemed to be called Absolute Batman. It seems to have your name on a list of creators there. What could you tell us about that, if anything?
The sun is like starting to like shine into my face now. I just had to move the camera around for a second. Yeah, I can't say anything. I can say what I've already mentioned. I have a newsletter, and like I've mentioned a few little things online on Twitter and stuff like that. Like there is a DC project that I'm working on. It's a very quick project though, because Kaya, I have the script here, and while I was listening to you guys talk before, I was like doodling little notes on that thing, on that DC script. But I'm still doing Kaya monthly, like, so really the only like the thing that they wanted me to do, it was just the right offer, because it was like They gave me a good enough amount of time. It was super exciting what they were offering to put. Like I was like, oh, I want to be part of that. That sounds really cool. And it was long enough of a deadline that I could keep Kaya going and make sure that, like I said, like the next issue is still going to come out when it's supposed to come out, and it's going to stay monthly. But I can do this other thing too, and not mess up my schedule. It kind of ruins my summer a little bit. Like I'm like burning the candle at both ends a little bit. But it was just too good of an offer to say no to, you know.
And is this potentially something you'll be doing as a writer and an artist, or just as an artist?
Just as an artist.
Okay. Well, I love the fact that you are keeping Kaya on the front burner. I also love that you're getting to do whatever this other project is. I'm very excited to find out more, potentially in the next couple of weeks. I guess we'll see what happens.
You're definitely going to find out more in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, Kaya, the next issue comes out August 7th. You teased a little bit about that, but what else, if anything, coming up do you want to mention about Kaya, or any other projects, or anything else people should be checking out?
Yeah, it's been like a busy summer. I gave myself a little bit of a break on Kaya, just a few weeks, you know, and then the trade paperback comes out, so I could and I was like, hey, like there's no issue that month, but I'm still working on it. But my plan was to give myself a few weeks off in the summer, and that has gone to shit basically because of this thing that I'm doing. But also I gave myself more work. It's like I don't know what I was thinking early. I just have a hard time thinking about these projects. But I did a bunch of covers for DC, covers for Marvel. I just signed up with Felix Comic Art as my new art rep, and he unveiled a bunch of covers I just sent him, which is like there's one for Ninja Turtles, and I did 8 or so for Action Comics, and there's one I just did for 4 I just did for the Ultimate Universe and Marvel, and I just did a bunch of other stuff. And there is a horror story that I'm going to do for Boom's new anthology, Hello Darkness.
Oh yeah.
That's an anthology series. It's got Becky Cloonan, and it's got like a James Tynion and like a ton of great creators on there. So I'm going to be doing like an 8-page short horror story that I'm writing, drawing, lettering, coloring, the whole thing. And just keep rolling with Kaya. I just finished the issue number 20 is in the can. It's all colored and lettered and everything. Went off to the printer. I'm currently going back and forth on this DC thing and doing a few pages of the next issue of Kaya. And that's going to keep rolling. I'm going to miss, a week or two here and there once in a while. But generally speaking, I've kept it almost totally monthly. It's something I had like a pep talk with like Eric Stevenson at the publisher at Image when we first started. And he was kind of like, just made me think about the importance of being reliable for comic shops and reliable for fans. Like, it's like you say you're going to be there that week, you should try your best to be there that week. So I've done my best to do that. Of course, I got 2 kids. Life gets in the way once in a while. You think you're going and I've got this deadline figured out, and then your kid gets a cough, and the next thing you know, you're home with the kid for a few days with they're homesick from daycare or whatever. So these life happens, but I'm doing my best to keep that as monthly as possible, and it's going good. It's going very well.
I think it's going great. We love the book. Congratulations on all the success. Fingers crossed. I really am looking forward to you getting to the end of the journey in volume 8. And congratulations on everything. Thanks for
thank
coming
you
out,
for
Wes.
all your work, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Have a good night. All right, that was Wes Craig. Again, the book is called Kaya. It's out from Image Comics. As mentioned, Kaya Book 3 is out in both comic book stores and in bookstores right now. Also, Kaya number 20 is coming out August 7th, 2024.
Zapping.
I'm sticking by it. I'm sticking by saying the year. From Image Comics, you can check that out. It's awesome. And there you go. And we have one final amazing guest for you this evening. It doesn't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. He has a new book called Kill All Immortals that is coming out tomorrow from Dark Horse. That's just the tip of the spear when it comes to this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Zack Kaplan. Zack, welcome. Hello.
Oh, hi.
Excited to have you on. Excited to talk about all these books. You have so much stuff in the works to get through, and things that have come out and are going to come out. But the main one that I want to talk about is Kill All Immortals, which comes out tomorrow. title sounds a little contradictory. I'm just going to put that out there, Zach.
Yeah. How
don't
do
know if you're
you how
aware.
do you kill an immortal? That's a good question. That's called dramatic irony, I think. You know,
Yes.
like how do you
Well, it's a great title, and I think that's not half the battle for getting people to pick up your book, but it's definitely the sort of thing that makes you skid to a stop
helps.
in the comic book store.
It helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the process of coming up with that, or did it just was it bolt of lightning?
No, some titles come right away, and some titles, like, you really have to put them through the lab a few times. I think Kill All Immortals went through the lab a few times. We weren't sure what it was, but finally, when I found that contradictory title, it kind of says everything you need to know about it. It's got killing, it's got immortals, and it creates this kind of question of how do you kill immortals, and which is also kind of a dramatic tension in the story. So it's enough. So yeah, I know it when I hear it, but sometimes it takes a while to get to it.
Yeah. I am very hesitant to say anything about the plot of this book because a lot of it is a surprise. I'd love to pitch it over to you to pitch the book, if that's all right.
We've got a pretty good this meets that. It's Secession meets John Wick with Immortal Vikings, but it basically follows this Viking family that has got immortality. 1,000 years later, they're now living modern day as a billionaire banking empire and using very barbaric methods to accumulate power and wealth. And on the cover there is the only daughter of this very masculine-driven family. Her name is Frey, and she pretty much wants nothing to do with the family business. She tries her best to stand out of everything, and circumstances will pull her very much in, and she will find herself at odds with her family. And it's violent, it's fun, it's got some, great character moments. And I think anyone that's familiar with my writing, I like to write very thought-provoking kind of storylines. So it's definitely got some fun thematics and fun things that make you think about billionaires particularly, and how they don't seem to die. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's also my most action-oriented comic that I've written. I've done a lot of sci-fi. I've done some real noir stuff or thriller stuff. And this was me really just wanting to let loose and have a fun action epic adventure.
Well, I was going to ask you about that in particular because Fico Ossio's, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, art is so good and the action sequences are so intense and bloody and great. Was that something that you had kind of laid out and then Fico came in, or once you had the artist in place, did it expand?
Yeah, I mean, Fico and I had been talking for years actually about doing something, and I knew Fico's style very much. I mean, Fico's also very versatile. He did a book at Dark Horse called No One Left to Fight, which is a very colorful, dynamic book. But I had seen his other work, and I knew that he had this really gritty, edgy side to his art. And he hadn't really employed it that much, except here and there in DC stuff, but not to the extent that we get it here. And I just knew it was right for an amazing comic. So, I brought him this idea. And then we initially had Jordi Belair on as a colorist. She was not able to follow through. I have an incredible colorist on this, Thiago Rocha. And together, him and Fico, as you can see, the colors are so dynamic. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's, Fico has a very fluid kind of exciting energy to his layouts, to his action. Thiago really kind of colors it very modern. It's just cool as hell. And they make a fantastic team. And Fico's so good. I mean, this first issue is the tip of the axe, no pun intended, of the whole, the action gets just crazy. There is so much great action coming in this series. So we're just really giving a taste of it here as nonstop as it is in the first issue. So I'm really excited for everyone to get to see more and more of Fico and Thiago's work.
We actually have a question here from the comments. Don't know if you can answer this one. This is from Edward. How do you kill Rupert Murdoch?
It's funny. The TV show, the HBO show Secession is kind of based loosely on the Murdochs, kind of. There's got some similarities, and I'm definitely drawing from Secession. I mean, that's kind of where the idea comes from, So if you're not familiar with I like to take these kind of devices like mind control or time travel or robots, and I find new ways to look at something like that, in a narrative you've not seen before. And so immortality, I'm going, okay, well, what is kind of modern about immortality? And it feels very much like billionaires don't die. They just continue to accumulate more power and wealth. How do you kill Rupert Murdoch? How do you kill these legacy families that just continue to live on and use quite barbaric methods? Like, it's funny, you know, the first issue starts and we see this Viking family come in and use very barbaric tactics to do something in business, like to get the deal. But how do you know that's not happening in real life? Like, you would never know. You don't know the extent that some billionaires would go to make things happen. And so, I don't know how you kill Rupert Murdoch, but that's kind of that theme, and that question is kind of what the series is all about. And it's no accident that it follows a protagonist on the inside. You know, really the answer is that you have to do it from the inside. And that's why we're following the daughter of this family, Frey.
Yeah. And I think, just to be clear to any of our listeners, we're going to stay here until we figure out a very specific plan, which probably won't have any negative repercussions police-wise or otherwise for us, so I'm not worried about it.
A disclaimer, I don't endorse killing any public figures. Rupert Murdoch is, I'm not planning anything there.
Yes.
So,
I would say you kill him with kindness. That's our message.
No, that's not going to work. Oh, boy. Well, to get back to this book, and this is skirting spoilers a little bit, but there's a little bit of like playing around with Norse mythology and other things going on here. Obviously, there's some pretty famous comics that involve Norse mythology. When you're getting into something like that, how do you skirt that line so you're not like, well, I'm doing what Marvel is doing versus I'm actually doing, say, you know, the real mythology and playing with that?
Yeah, I mean, we've got Vikings, but they've got Viking hair and Viking weapons, but they're dressed in modern, you know, Armani suits and Dolce and Gabbana. And I don't know, to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure I've seen this incarnation of Vikings. I mean, there's a lot of Viking and a lot of Norse stuff in stories, but I'm watching the comments, or I don't endorse killing any public figures, just private ones. Yeah, I don't know that I've seen this incarnation. I mean, that's one thing I really liked about designing this world and bringing this story to life, was combining the old with the new, like combining modern locations like, you know, the fancy yacht or the mansion or the nightclub or the private plane, and then putting Vikings in those situations and seeing how they act. They're billionaires, they're dressed nice, but they're still barbaric, they're still deadly and dangerous. And I don't know, that duality is just really cool and really interesting to me. And I'm not sure, I think that's how we're trying to differentiate this story. And I don't know that there's too many other things that I can remember off the top of my head that kind of tap into that.
Yeah. The book would not work, though, if it didn't have an emotional connection, and it definitely does. Like, it's really grounded in a very specific relationship. Again, I'm not because it comes out tomorrow, I'm trying not to say anything you don't want me to say, but what would you like to talk about that?
I would just say, I like complex characters, and I like characters that don't, their path forward is not really clear, that you kind of understand their dilemma, but you don't know which way they're going to go. And they kind of are being pulled in two different paths. And so I definitely see Frey Asvold as kind of hopefully an Erica Slaughter, someone that people can come in and kind of care about. And they come in at first to kind of enjoy the action, enjoy the world, but they get attached to her. She's a very likable, charismatic character. She's kind of very unsure of how she's supposed to proceed. She's thrown into a tough situation and you don't really know which way she's going to go. And she goes left and then she goes right. And the story kind of tests her. And so I'm hoping it's not just a two-dimensional straight action story. It is something that I think people will really get engrossed with her character. It's very emotional. She's got some very kind of dynamic relationships that get tested in the story. So yeah, I just think I just say generally from a character and emotional standpoint, I think that come for the blood and the violence, but you know, that's all meant to be taken with a grain of salt. It's barbaric Vikings. It's a really great character story, and it's a really great look at billionaire class, and it's an amazing adventure story. So I think we're bringing a lot of different elements to this story to kind of pull it all together and give everybody a little bit of everything.
Well, I'll definitely back that up. You were kind enough to send us the first 2 issues. We had already read the first one, and it's great. Like, the action is great.
Oh
The
man,
characters are great. I'm really excited to follow where this goes. It has a really progressive action to it. Again, I'm being very vague for our listeners here, but um, it's very clear to me where this series is going to go, at least in the first couple of issues. And I'm very excited to watch that happen.
I think you know where certainly by the end of the first issue you can feel the tension. By the end of the second issue, you know where it's going. But there's also some amazing twists and reveals that are coming in just issue 3 and 4. So we did our best to try to really keep people on their toes. But yeah, you certainly get a feel for where it's going in the sense of Frey's mission and her journey and her adventure and the tone of the book and all of that. And how do you kill all immortals? You'll have to stay till the end of the series to find out.
Read the book.
And to be clear, I think that's I always like that in a story when you feel like that first issue is pushing the boulder up the hill, and then by the end of that you're like, oh no, boulder's at the top of the hill. And then the second issue here very clearly is like that boulder's just getting faster and faster towards its inevitable end, which is great. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's talk about some other projects you have coming out. Just going in date order. Beyond Real, your miniseries is being collected on September 10th from Vault.
And the last issue drops tomorrow as well. So the series finale comes out. It was supposed to be a week ago. It comes out tomorrow. So that's issue 5. It's an all-star stack. The last issue's got Jorge Corona, Liana Kangas, Luana Vecchio, Fabiana Mescolo, Jordi Belair, Matea Iacono does colors as well. Hassan Otsmane Elha was nominated for an Eisner as our letter across every single artist's work. Liana Kangas and John Pearson have covers. It's just a great final issue. And I feel like anybody who's been kind enough to stay with the entire series and not trade weight will be absolutely blown away by the last issue. The artwork, the story, I'm very proud of it. You know, the whole thing's a love letter to artists. I don't know if people are familiar, but it's kind of a spin on simulation theory. And I kind of got interested by like the whole Matrix. What if we're living in a simulation? It's a very kind of common idea right now in like science and physicists. But, you know, life is creative and art is creative. And so I kind of said, well, what if the simulation that we're in is creative? What if it's more surrealist and abstract? And so we have this miniseries about an artist who discovers that she has the ability to travel through the different layers of the simulation. And each layer is drawn by a completely different artist. So over the course of this 5-issue miniseries, we have 7 artists drawing very distinct, very impressive styles. Vincenzo Riccardi, Dennis Menhir, Tony Vizula, all drawing kind of very different worlds. And it's just beautiful and fascinating. And I'm very proud of it.
That is awesome, and also absolutely wild. And I'm only going to say the barest minimum about this as well because it's a while off. But the Midnight Shadows is coming out October 2nd from Dark Horse. I know we talked about this a bit over email. Yeah. But having read the beginning of this is bonkers. Like in a really good way. The art also is absolutely beyond here. Again, I keep kicking it over to you, but like this is
the Midnight is one of the largest synthwave bands in the world, and they travel everywhere. They got like a million listeners on Spotify. Synthwave is this music genre that's kind of come out of 80s kind of big movies like Tron and Terminator and stuff, and it's a very cool genre of music. And so we've done a graphic novel. It's a completely original story. It's kind of a reflection of the music. So if you know the Midnight and you love the Midnight, you will absolutely love this graphic novel. But if you've never heard of the Midnight and you just like my work, or you like a sci-fi adventure series like Tron or Blade Runner, you will love this. It's about a young man who's about to be a father. He's kind of reticent to accept the responsibility and grow up, very Peter Pan-esque. And then he accidentally gets sucked into a video game from his childhood, only to find out that when he gets there, they say, this is the real world. You are actually the hero of this game, and you are not, you're not a dad expecting in Los Angeles. This is the real world. And so he doesn't know which world is real, and he doesn't know, and he's got to save the world again. It's very steeped in video game culture and 80s, 90s nostalgia. And the artwork is amazing. It's got 2 artists on it. Janoy Lindsay, who just did Superboy over at DC Comics, and then Stephen Thompson, who's an amazing artist. He's done Star Trek and so many other great things. And he's also colored by Thiago Rocha, the colorist from Kill All Immortals. And it's like so synthwave cyberpunk, just amazing artwork. There's so many like double page spreads that just blow your mind of like sci-fi cities, and it's great. It's a fever dream. It's amazing.
I'm glad you called out Tron, because reading the book, I could hear that Daft Punk soundtrack in the background while I was reading it. So
it's a great, it's our kind of, it's definitely inspired in some ways by Tron for sure. Yeah.
Before we let you go here, we had a little comment on something I was thinking. Is there any highlights you'd want to point out on your nerd wall behind you?
I mean, Deadly Class. I've got every single trade up there, and I was geeking out listening to Wes talk about Kaya. So, I mean, I think Deadly Class was one of the books that, it's one of my favorites by far of all time, and it's kind of inspired me to get into comics, I dare say. Wow. So I mean, awesome. I got inspired maybe a little bit earlier, but yeah, one of my favorites. But I have a handful over there, so a little impressive. Bit of everything. Yeah, well, I've read most of them, but not like any good comic collector, you've read most of them, right? But not there's a couple on there.
Yep. Yeah, there's a couple. There's a couple on there. Zach, this is a lot of stuff, but anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, I have believe it or not, I have a 4th book for this year. It just got announced a couple weeks ago. It's called Dark Empty Void. It's with Mad Cave. The artist is Chris Sheehan, and Francisco Segala is doing the colors. And World is on letters, and it's an exploration of black holes. It's basically the story is that scientists are exploring black holes. They've created a microscopic black hole in a subterranean bunker somewhere on Earth, and then all shit goes to hell. Basically, stuff starts coming out of the black hole. Most notably, a human being. A human being comes out of the black hole, and the scientists don't know what to make about it. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But it's very much inspired by some of my favorite movies like Aliens, Annihilation, Arrival. It's, part claustrophobic. It's part monster creature horror. It's definitely the most horror-oriented thing that I've done. I've done a lot of sci-fi stuff, but this is a sci-fi horror story. And it's gorgeous. It's I can't wait. And that drops in September. So actually, you'll be hearing me talk a lot more about that, and a lot more coming out on that one.
So just 2 things in September, 1 thing in October. Plus, we didn't even talk about, I believe there's a adaptation of your book Mindset that's being worked on.
Mindset is being adapted for television, yes.
With Don Cheadle. Have you met Don Cheadle yet?
I mean, we're best friends. Yeah, of course.
That's amazing.
No, I actually have not met Don Cheadle yet. Okay. I think Don Cheadle is off filming secret movies right now, actually, to be honest with you. So I have not met him, but I look forward to meeting him.
All right. Well, awesome. Zach, this is all great stuff. I can't wait for everybody to check it out. It is very cool. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for chatting about all this. Have a lovely night.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There we go. Once again, the book coming out tomorrow, at least, is called Kill All Immortals. It's great, coming out from Dark Horse.
Great first issue.
And then Beyond Real, as you mentioned, is also coming out tomorrow, but is going to be collected, the full series, on September 7th, September 10th from Vault, my goodness. And The Midnight Shadows out October 2nd from Dark Horse as well. And folks, we're going to move to our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It is your audience question.
Amazing.
And for audience questions, all you got to do is drop a question in the comments on Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitter, or Twitch. They can be about absolutely anything. This week, our chef is off. People, frequent listeners know. We have an actual real chef, but he ordered that we make margaritas, and who am I to deny him making a margarita,
Yeah, sure.
What about you, Pete? What are you drinking tonight?
Knock knock. Who's there? It's Land Shark. You know what I mean?
No. What are you drinking though? Oh, Land Shark. Oh, that's a surprise. Well, anyway, let's see. We only have really one question right now. Edward Doherty says, "Wouldn't a microscopic black hole be larger than a normal black hole?"
I mean, let's.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, at times.
Yeah, could be. Well, that's it for your audience questions.
Yeah,
that
nice
was my
job.
favorite section.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Easy Reader says, "Did you see Despicable Me 4 yet?" Me, no. My kids don't care about Despicable Me.
Wow.
They don't care about Shrek 5 was announced today. They don't care about that.
Well,
They don't care
okay.
about any of that stuff. We were trying. We've been talking about seeing Inside Out 2 for weeks, and we haven't gotten to that. So I don't know what's going on, man.
I saw 3 in the theaters with my nephews, so I might see 4 next time I see them. So
Nice. So the answer is no. Christopher Lizzie says, "I'd like to take the secret type bananas quiz." Pete.
Oh, let me just check my. Nope. Sorry.
That is not the key to unlocking Pete's quiz. Unfortunately,
Quizzes.
Stanley, before I get to Stanley's question, Stanley asked where Justin was. We didn't say he had family stuff, so he couldn't make it.
Yeah, he gets confused because we change the show, what time it is and what day it is all the time. So it's hard for him sometimes. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Stanley says, "Do you think The Boys ever gets too shocking and disgusting?" Great question. We've definitely discussed that a little bit on this season's Let's Hear It for the Boys. What's your take, Pete?
Yeah, definitely. It's a shocking and disgusting show. Everybody has different lines and different things where they're like, oh, maybe it's hilarious exploding out of a whale or something, but not so funny out of a person. Everybody's different. So the answer, I think, is yes. There's some things that the show pushes that is like, oh man, this, not as cool. But yeah.
The thing that we've been talking around a lot this season that I've been thinking about quite a bit because I still like the show is there's, like you said, it all depends on the perspective and the person. So it's individual to anybody in terms of is this too far? Is this not too far? But it works if it's based in character and or plot and it pushes things forward. If it's just there to be shocking and disgusting, it doesn't work. And I think this is 100% no shade to Garth Ennis or Derek Robertson. I've been very curious to go back and check the comics since I've seen a lot of slander online about the comics, about them being too far or not holding up. But I haven't figured out how to encapsulate this, but I think there's something that we know as comic book fans when you see Garth Ennis' name on the cover where you're like, well, I know what I'm getting into here.
Yeah.
And you've signed up for that. And that's not about whoa, Garth Ennis went too far so much as this is a Garth Ennis comic. This absolutely bonkers, disgusting thing is going to happen here. We're just going to roll with it and push forward because he has intricate plots. He knows more about war than anybody alive or whatever he's doing here. And
I don't know about that, but all right.
But legitimately, his war comics are so good. I don't know how he knows that much and finds so much nuance in so many different directions all the time. But something with The Boys, and again, I haven't revisited it since we first read it on the show, and I've been eager to do that again. But even going into the first season, it felt like this stuff is raunchy to be raunchy, and it is shocking and disgusting. I hope they don't do it on the show. And for 3 seasons, they mostly did not. There were shocking and disgusting moments, but they framed it in the right way. The ratio is a little off this season. There are moments that feel much more like the comics where it's, oh, we're going to top that thing you saw before. Here we go. And it just doesn't quite fit with the rest of the show. So,
also, they've been teasing it as this is the grossest season yet. You thought last season freaked you out. Wait till you see what we do this season.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's pretty clear coming through in terms of the writing and everything. And it's a bummer because the show has been better than that. That said, still good, still like it, still watching it. Nothing like it on TV. Scheuchler says, you've been invited to write a new comic, your own IP. What artists do you want to work with it on it?
Oh, man.
So basically, what artists do you like?
Well, it really depends on the project, but I mean, there's so many amazing artists. Wes Craig would be one of them. Daniel Warren Johnson would be another. There's just so many. Bachelot is unbelievable.
Oh, that reminds me. After I did the talk today, somebody came up to me from the Brooklyn Public Library. They are doing a discussion on August 5th about Do a Power Bomb.
Oh, wow.
So I just mentioned this because they were super nice afterwards, and they were signing people up for library cards and everything. I'm not involved in any way, but if you live in Brooklyn or are near Brooklyn, you want to go to a nice talk about Do a Power Bomb, check the library website. It's August 5th. Good stuff.
Amazing comic.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. Get you in the feels, man.
I throw out there just because I think Zach mentioned her. Leanna Kangas is a great artist. Like I don't know. This is no slag to her, but like I don't know if she'd be my number one. But she's certainly the first person I thought of. She's great. She would be fun. Zoe Thorogood would be amazing. But I think it comes down to what is the thing we're working on and what is the pitch. Michael Tillman says, "How about Axel AF? Pete, tell me you've seen it."
Oh, come on. At least 3 times at this point.
Jesus Christ, Pete.
I got problems.
What'd you think? Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F.
Dude, don't make fun of that fucking song, dude. That is a banger, and that takes me back to a happy place. So how dare you, sir?
How dare I repeat it? I'm sorry.
No, you didn't give it justice, and that bothered me. But yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for the song, and also just I don't know, man. Something about Eddie Murphy running around Los Angeles causing havoc makes me happy. I don't know what it is, but it's I'm a sucker for it. So yeah, I had a great time.
There you go. Dow says, thoughts on the new Hellboy movie? Pete, have you seen the trailer for Hellboy the Crooked Man?
Yes. And I was like, I can't believe somebody else is doing Hellboy. Like, I knew eventually it would happen, but I just wasn't ready for it. It just feels...
Did you see the David Harbour one?
I saw every trail. I saw like 3 different versions of the trailer.
Oh, so that's basically like seeing the movie. There you go. Yeah.
Wait, I didn't know it was out. I thought it was just the...
There was the 2 versions with Ron Perlman, directed by Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, I know.
There was
Ron
a David
Perlman's
Harbour Hellboy movie that came out. It was apparently awful. I haven't seen that. And then there's Hellboy the Crooked Man. I gotta say, I was initially excited about it because it sounded like they were going for an actual Hellboy story, which, like we talked about it, I don't say this dismissively. Most Hellboy stories are Hellboy's like, weird supernatural thing is going on here, comes to a town, and weird supernatural demon comes out and is like, I'm going to kill you, Hellboy. And he's like, I'd prefer if you wouldn't. And then the supernatural creature is like, back to hell with me. And he's like, all right. And that's pretty much it. And that's like what they were implying about the movie. This seems like a cheapo, terrible horror movie, and that's a bummer. But we'll see.
The trailer, I thought they really tried to capture some of the characters that you saw in the comics a little bit. Like the people with like the white hair and the white kind of makeup on looked like straight from one of the...
I guess it just visually it doesn't... I don't know. I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate they tried to do this. It looks like a fan film, and I do say that dismissively. So,
all right. I guess,
Edward Doherty says, which game from your youth would you like to be sucked into so that you're the hero? Alex, did they have games in your youth besides the big circle and stick thing? Edward.
Shots fired, bro.
Jesus Christ. We also had Tiddlywinks. What are you talking about?
Yeah. How was it just wearing a barrel, Alex?
It was great. I went down Niagara Falls every day.
Wow. It's not too far from my house. I burger time, dude. If I could eat burgers and be in a video game, I mean, that's a winning. That's definitely winning.
Very similarly, I'd love to be in Boy and His Blob, the game where you fed jelly beans to a blob and turned him into ladders and things.
I had a paper route, and it was like Paperboy, so it was crazy.
Nelson Martinez Jr. says, have you guys checked out the Suicide Squad Isekai on Max or no interest? I'm definitely interested. I keep not having time to watch it, but
yeah, HBO Max is like, yo, why aren't you watching this? I'm like, all right, HBO Max, all right. They're like, dude, this seems like it's right up your alley from everything else you've watched. Why wouldn't you watch this?
You've watched Suicide Squad and The Suicide Squad several times.
Yeah, you seem to watch anything that says Suicide Squad in the title and also love anime and stuff. So what are you doing?
Well, there you go. We have not checked it out. We're bad comic book fans. Thoughts on Netflix's Supercell? Have you watched that?
No, I don't even.
This is a
Shout outs to Noel. What's up, bro?
More real world. Monk 420 2004. Great username. This is a more real world superpowers type thing. It's on Netflix right now. I also haven't watched it. I heard it was all right.
Yeah. Are you gonna put it on your list?
I'm gonna put Suicide Isekai before that.
Okay.
Which means I'm never going to.
I'm just trying to gear up for our next week in Geek. What to be ready for?
I'm not going to watch either of those because I just do not have time. Schreikler says, clarifies the due Powerbomb event is the New York Public Library, not Brooklyn.
Oh, Alex.
Oh, my God.
How dare you?
David Quigley says, if there's a comic book that has been adapted that still hasn't gotten right, but most people don't agree with you. I think what David means here, is there a comic book that you think was adapted correctly, but most people don't think was adapted correctly?
Yeah.
I'll throw out there that my most controversial comic book movie take, and mind you, I have not watched it again since theaters, Green Lantern is nowhere near as bad as people say.
No, you are out of your fucking mind, dude. It's so bad. The people who did the editing didn't watch that, and
I know
Ryan Reynolds does that joke that I'm saying.
It's not good.
Very true.
It's not good, but at the same time, and I've brought this up a million times, the movie ends with Green Lantern in space holding back Parallax with two green willpower jet planes and punches him into the sun. That's very comic booky. And
doesn't mean it's good.
It doesn't mean it's good, but I remember coming out of it being like, well, that was like a comic book. I'm cool. I'm cool with that. God. Everybody's being too harsh on this movie.
Oh my God, dude. It's so bad.
Wow. Let's see. Edward Doherty says, I have to leave now. My answers for trivia are 1A, 2B, 3A. And the movie is So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Oh, man. That's a great, sick ref, bro.
And is he correct?
No.
Oh, okay. Too bad. That's it for your audience questions. We're going to move on to our next section, which is trivia. And for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LePage.
All right. This is the part we give back to you, the lovely audience. It's an opportunity to win $25 free to Midtown Comics online, because if you had $25, you go to a comic book shop. We're looking for is a first-hand up guy or a person, and or we can make Zelbatron play and donate the money.
Yeah, I'll donate it to Per the Boys Black Lives Matter or something like that. They did that in the last episode, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Ooh, Easy Reader says me.
All right.
There we go.
The reader it is.
All right.
All right, here we go, reader. Today's trivia is on great comic book characters. and a small nod to the legend, William Russell, R.I.P. Please listen to all three options before
I really desperately need to know how many weeks you are behind at this point. It's driving me insane.
I jumped up. I'm skipping people because of you. This is driving me nuts, man.
Do the important people and then go back. That's how it works.
William Russell is important, you piece of shit.
Who is that?
He was in one of the first Doctor Who's ever. I mean, come on, dude. Fucking don't get mad at me because you don't know your shit.
Oh, okay. Hey, real quick, what's your favorite episode of Doctor Who, Pete?
Fuck you, man. All right, question number 1. This samurai rabbit is an award-winning character and part of one of the longest-running independent comics. Who is
Usagi Yojimbo.
Is it A, Usagi Yojimbo, B, probably not the brother of Troy McClure, C, Mark McClure?
I don't know. I feel like it's Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo.
Hey, nice, dude. I'm glad that you're giving it the full respect it deserves.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Of course. A? Is it A?
It is.
There we go.
Here we go. Question number 2. Agent Graves. You know which one I'm talking? You want to yell it out, asshole? Or are you going to...
Nope. Don't know yet.
Okay. It's too bad. If someone says Agent Graves, you don't know what book I'm talking about. That's kind of... All right. Agent Graves is a badass character from this award-winning comic. Is it A, 100 Bullets? B, Jack, help me start this letter to my beloved. C, Jack, dear love.
Oh, boy. I will mention, if you haven't read The Blood Brothers Mother by Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Riso from Distillery, get it. It is so good. Have you read it yet, Pete?
No, I'd love to.
Oh, my God. It's so good.
All right. Did you say A yet?
He said A.
Okay, great. Here we go. Question number 3, last one. You can't lie in front of this cat. From this award-winning comic, is it A, Saga, B, Spectacular, give me 14 of them right now, John, what are in these burgers, C, Ratzenberger?
Wow. Is this a Pixar movie? Or are you doing a Pixar movie?
No, someone already called it out. Schweikler, of course, was right.
Superman?
Yeah,
is it A?
It is A, and we're talking about the 1978 legend Superman.
Wow. Good movie. Hey, did I ever tell you about the time that my daughter had COVID and she lives in a room that has a window to the backyard? So this was like very early in COVID. So she was quarantining, but we wanted to do something with her. So we put up a movie screen in the backyard. So we're like, great, we can all watch a movie together. We'll be outside, she'll be inside, and she can kind of like look out the window. And we watched Superman, the original one from 1978 that you just called out. And about 20 minutes into this movie, I live in New York City, just as a reminder, a rat stood next to the movie screen and went, "Ah!" and screamed just like that. That was it for the movie, man. We were done, and everybody screamed and ran inside. Good times.
Yeah, that's New York for you. You know, it's a character in your movie. You know what I mean?
Well, as we all know, new comic books are coming out tomorrow. Lots of exciting stuff coming out. Pete, what are you looking forward to that's hitting comic book stores on July 10th?
Oh my God, there's so much great stuff. And, you know, I'm looking forward to getting into it with you in the stack. But I'm still having a great time at the Blood Hunt. And the Incredible Hulk Blood Hunt #1 is glorious. Also, from the world of minor threats, Barfly #1 is also a banger.
Great call. I am going to call out two that are also in our Stack podcast, which comes out Wednesday, 9 a.m. in the Stack feed and the Comic Book Club feed. But of course, X-Men #1 is a big one coming out from Marvel. Very curious to check that out. That's going to be a huge release. Also, something that I have been so hyped about, Action Comics 1067. This is a Superman Superstars issue that's not tied to current continuity. It comes from Gail Simone and Eddie Barrows and Rainbow Rowell and Sion Tormey. That is a must pick up in my book.
What a team.
So exciting. And that is it for this week's show. A bunch of people we want to thank. We want to thank Wes Craig for coming on. Check out Kaya. Book 3 is out today, and issue number 20 is out August 7th. 2024. Andrew Baillie and Spike Trotman. Check out Iron Circus Games on Backer Kit. And Zack Kaplan, you can check out Kill All Immortals from Dark Horse Comics. That's coming out tomorrow. Also, The Midnight Shadows is coming out in October. Beyond Real is coming out as well. And then Getting Collected on September 10th. And all the other things he talked about. Next week's going to be another huge show. Jordan Morris, one of my favorite guys, and Bowen Bones McCurdy are going to be here to talk about Youth Group. And Kelly Thompson and Paulina Ganesha are going to be here to talk about Powerpuff Girls, the reboot for Dynamite Comics. Very excited about that. Comic Book Club News, our daily news podcast. Check that out Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. every day. Let's hear it for the boys. Our boys podcast coming out on Thursdays. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club to support the show and all the shows we do. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Android, Spotify, or the app of your choice. At Comic Book Live on Twitter/X. Comic Book Club Live on Instagram and TikTok, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, good night.
Take care of yourself.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Hope you're doing well, Stray Bullies. What's up, Brooklyn?